and welcome to our Care and Counsel Series. My name is Rebecca Spinner, and I'm an attorney with the law firm of Surprenant Beneski and Nunes. We are estate planning and elder law attorneys, and I'm here today with Ruth McNaughton. She is from the company Comfort Keepers, and she's a geriatric care manager. And today we're going to be talking about crisis versus pre-planning. So very excited to be here with you today, Ruth.
For having me. It's nice to see you.
So one of the things Ruth and I actually talk about a lot is, kind of that pre-planning, getting things in place beforehand and being prepared for a crisis, or kind of what happens when there is a crisis and we need to do something now. And I think one thing we talk about a lot is there is always something that we can do to help folks, but usually pre-planning is going to make things so much easier, so much less expensive, and so much less stressful for families and loved ones and whoever's on somebody's care team. So I think I'd like to start by just talking a little bit about what a crisis move actually looks like and how that compares to a planned move. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. A crisis move can often end up with an emergency room visit and trying to manage that crisis from an emergency room setting versus having a plan in place in advance. I often think about it as, your kitchen's on fire and you're trying to buy fire insurance in the middle of a fire. So that pre-planning is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in your experience, do you find that the cost of doing something in a crisis, getting somebody moved in a crisis, is going to be more than that pre-planning? And do you have kind of like an average what you think those costs might look like, the difference?
Yep. So that can play out in several different ways. Again, it can result in an emergency room visit that's going to be outpatient and out-of-pocket expenses. And from there, the case managers that are in the hospital or in the emergency room are really not equipped to help to place patients for a long-term setting. So that could be assisted living, it could be more permanent care at home. It could be a nursing home setting, but for on a long-term basis. So often in that setting, you're not going to go where you want to go. You're not going to go where is often most price effective for you,
Mhm.
because they just need to get you out of the hospital.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and when I oversaw those departments, we used to say, the case managers are not real estate agents. They can't help to find another housing setting that's more appropriate for somebody.
Right. So it sounds like there's probably a much larger financial cost, but it's not only just that financial cost, it's the cost of not getting to be where you want to be, not being in the location you want to be or the facility that you're most comfortable in. So it seems like the cost probably goes beyond that financial to also just the personal cost of not, being where you want to be. I think that
Right.
that's really relevant too. And one thing I just wanted to add there is we've talked about this before, Ruth, when folks don't have their documents in place beforehand. Like, let's say somebody is in a crisis and they don't have a power of attorney in place and that person has become incapacitated. What would have been just a few $100s to get a power of attorney in place is now going to be thousands of dollars to have an attorney go to court and petition a court for conservatorship, the power to make those legal and financial decisions. So we definitely do see a significant financial burden of not doing that pre-planning as well. But I do really like kind of focusing in on that personal cost too, because we all want to make sure we're aging with dignity and we're, in a location that's going to be comfortable and that's going to be, make sense travel wise for our family. Like, if you have a spouse, we don't want your spouse driving 60 miles to come see you every day, especially if they're elderly themselves. So all of those things I think are really, really important. Um,
Absolutely.
so turning kind of to seniors at home,
Mhm.
can you talk a little bit about some signs that might point to the fact that a senior might not be safe at home anymore and kind of may need a plan within the next 6 months or whatever the timeline is you think is most appropriate? What are some signs that we should be looking for to kind of pinpoint that a senior might need to be moving out of that home situation?
Sure. So some of the things we look for, which can be months or even a year or two leading up to that. houses can become too much maintenance. So you'll start to see things like, yard work and routine home maintenance is not being done because it's either a physical or a financial burden. There may be safety issues. A lot of older homes are not set up with first floor en suites with nice handicap bathrooms. People have showers on the second floor. They have stairs to manage that may become more difficult as we get older. And, social isolation is a real thing, and that impacts us not only physically, but cognitively. And we really saw acute issues of that, like during COVID. So people that are in their own home that maybe live alone or just with a spouse, as they become a little more frail, they're not able to get out and socialize. They can't do routine things like food shop or pick up prescriptions. So really watching for those telltale signs ahead of time and putting a plan in place, which may or may not mean selling a house and moving to another setting. It could also mean modifying a home and, making sure some of those other things are in place, in the community so that the socialization and the cognitive things don't start to decline.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely very important. And I think
Mhm.
what it all kind of circles back to is when we do find that a senior is in those situations, we may have to start acting pretty quickly to, get these things in place, whether that's bringing the home care in or looking into an assisted living or another setting for somebody to live in. And it kind of all relates back to that pre-planning, because if we don't have a plan in place beforehand, if we don't have our legal documents in place, if we don't have our GCM on board who's going to be able to help coordinate all of these things, it's really hard in a crisis when a senior now has no choice but to do something for us to get those things done. So I think the pre-planning is just really, really important. And a lot of grief can be avoided just by making sure you have some of these basic things in place and making sure whoever the professionals on your team are, if you have an attorney, if you have a geriatric care manager, if you have a CPA, whoever it is, that everybody is working together to make sure that senior is getting the care that they need and, being able to fund that care and those types of things. So I think that's really important and really where it comes into play, our partnership and making sure these things happen for a family.
Absolutely. Those contingency plans can really be a vital help to, anybody at home, and being able to make that plan can take months, in a controlled manner, but it's going to be such a better outcome than trying to do it in a crisis.
Absolutely. I agree completely. Well,
Mhm.
thank you so much for joining us today for this Care Counsel series. And it was great seeing you, Ruth.
Great to see you, Rebecca. Thank you.